Hi, thanks for being here for the third Know Thyself class, where we're going to be talking about the house systems and the houses, what they mean, and just a little bit of backtracking of what we've already covered. We've talked about the zodiac signs, the 12 different signs, and we've also talked about all the planets and asteroids and a few other symbols in the chart and what those mean. And now we're going to talk about the houses, which is a little bit of a review as well, because the houses correlate directly with the signs. They're just in different placements in the chart, but they represent similar energies. And also, if you're watching this and or listening to it and you haven't watched the other two, it's okay, because all of the things, the basics of astrology can be learned in different orders. It's all able to be applied at some point. It all makes sense, even separate for now. So that's a great thing, and especially in this video because it's a little bit of review as we'll see. So the house systems, the houses, what are they? They are, I'll show you in a little thing that I made where, a little presentation that I made. So we've talked about the zodiac signs, which is like where your planets are. And those have to do with how we show up in the world, how our energy is expressed. We've talked about, and those are these symbols, and these Aquarius, Capricorn, all that. So that's what the zodiac sign is. And then we've also talked about the planets, and the planets in the chart are the what. They're like the meat, like what is the expression of the specific type of human function or psycho-spiritual human function of, yeah, it's like the parts of the person, the different aspects of the, the expression. And then for the houses, it's where in life does the sign or planet show up. So it's what part of life? Is it in your house? Is it in your relationships? Is it in your personality? Is it in your job? So that's what the houses represent. And I will show you, we will see in this video where and how we read the houses. So there's something to be aware of, which was a little challenging for me to grapple with at first, is that there's different house systems. I'm actually going to go out of this. Well, not right now. So yeah, I am. No, that's weird. Okay, so for example, when you go to do someone's chart, your astrology system will have a setting, a default setting. But if you want to change that default setting and see what it really is, you'll see right here options for zodiac and houses. So we did extended chart selection before we went to the chart in astro.com, and you can click on house system right here and it will say all of these things. So I want to just tell you that out of all this, the three that I've experienced and I'm familiar with are Placidus, whole signs, and porphyry. And I'm going to go back to my presentation and talk a little bit about those. So porphyry is a lot of information I'm sharing with you is from a teacher. I took the New Paradigm Astrology class that goes over everything. It's evolutionary astrology, and it's but with Kaipacha and his team. And he suggests doing porphyry. Um, so that's valid, right? He's a very like popular, famous astrologer. He does the YouTube videos, Astrology for the Soul, every week. And I highly suggest checking them out. That's what got me into astrology and learning the language, was seeing those every week. And then, so with learning from him, I did look into the house sign that he uses. Now, going beyond that, actually the very first person before I knew Kaipacha who introduced me to, who I met when I was, how old was I? 23. I was introduced to Matt Savinar, who I was doing a permaculture course with, and he uses whole sign, and I really value his insight in astrology. So I used whole sign for a little while as well. Now, also, Placidus is actually, I think it's the most popular, is Placidus, in terms of like the most across the board, what people usually use. And that is when I did astrology counseling. I received astrology, like life coaching, from Nate Newcomer, and he used Placidus. And I also follow someone on Instagram, and she's also a friend named Izzy, and she's at Cosmic Love Gore on Instagram, and she does daily updates on astrology, and she uses Placidus. So I'm vibing with the Placidus right now, although I have looked at all three and compared my chart and like went and saw, I've looked at it from every angle. So you'll see in the next slide what the differences are. But it's nice to look at them and actually read and interpret the chart in each of these three house systems, because you'll just get deeper insight into possibilities, and you can actually feel for yourself which one resonates most. They all have validity, and they're all true in some sense, because they're only a tiny bit off. So it's actually really fun to look and see what's off from one house system to the other, and how it relates to you, and how you can actually incorporate that new insight into your life. So I used my chart as an example, and I'm really a little bit sad that this picture is not showing up right here. So that's a bummer, but I guess I can describe it. So here we have examples of Placidus and Porphyry. I'm going to pause this video and try to get it back on here, just because I really value that picture. So I'm going to pause and I'll be right back. All right, we're back. So let's see here. So Placidus, I put kind of middle and center, so you could see. And so we're going to look at, so the houses are these little 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These denote the houses. So 1 is always on the left. As you can see in all three of these pictures, there's a 1 and there's a triangle, and there's always 12 houses, and they're always in that same placement. Now, what's on the outside is different based on what chart you're reading. So for example, all these charts are the same chart. They're my chart. So right here is one zodiac sign, the orange thing that I'm putting this blue dot up against. And I'm going to do it on this one. It's right here. And I'm going to do it here. It's right here. So you can see how that varies per chart, how they're slightly different. And that symbol is Libra, and it is there on the ascendant. And so your chart is probably going to be different. I know one person in this class actually has a similar chart to mine, so she does have Libra on the ascendant, and it won't be different. But another person might have, I think Scorpio is on her ascendant. And so it'll be more, this sign is Scorpio, and it'll be more up. Another person could have a completely different chart, and they could have, like, for example, my friend has Leo rising. So this is the Leo symbol, and it would be all the way over here on the ascendant. So that's another thing to mention, is that the ascendant is based on the time you're born. It's where the sun was setting, or no, it was rising. No, I think it's setting. This is this. I think this is the east. This is the horizon line, and no, this is where the sun was rising when you were born. That's why it's called the ascendant, or the rising sign. So imagine Earth is in the center here, and the sun is rising here in Libra. Another person might have their rising in Leo, therefore this would be Leo, and their sun would be rising in Leo. And the whole wheel on the outside would be different. So depending on what chart you look at, you'll see different zodiac signs all around this wheel. The houses, they'll stay in the same place no matter what, okay? So this changes on the outside, but the middle does not change. These houses stay stationary. So in addition to that, we've got Porphyry. So these are the degrees. So my ascendant is at 21 degrees Libra. So it's showing that like 10 degrees of the Libra is down here in my first house below the horizon sign. And another 20 of the 21 degrees of the Libra is already above. And that's in my 12th house. So if I had a planet here and a planet here, they'd both be in Libra, but they would be in different houses. And that's what makes the charts different, is when you adjust this dial on the side, you then adjust where the planets are and what houses they're in. So you'll see, comparing these three, that the Pluto here, this is Pluto, is in Scorpio in the first house. Pluto's still in Scorpio in the first house with these two. And in whole sign, Pluto moves to the second house. So that's why whole sign is a lot different, because whole sign brings your rising sign, and it brings the first degree of it brings it so that the entire zodiac sign is in the first house. Whereas here it's separated into two different houses. And so the whole sign I learned actually also not only from Matt Savinar, but from another very amazing teacher of mine, Seja Poppin, in the Evolutionary School of Herbalism, or the School of Evolutionary Herbalism. And he is one who teaches me medical astrology. So he looks, this is what he uses for medical astrology. And so that's why I was using that for a little while, because I was really interested in medical astrology. But now I'm actually learning that this actually makes more sense for my medical astrology purposes. And you can always use yourself as an example to see if this resonates or not. So anyway, so you saw how Pluto was different. Now in Porphyry and Placidus, it was a little different, or it was not different for this one. But then here, down here, Saturn comes into the second house, but the Saturn's in the third house in this Placidus one. So I've been looking, same with Venus here. It's on the fourth house in this one, and it's in the fifth house in this one. And everything else, oh, and then here we go, Chiron is in the eighth house here. No, I think it's Mars changes here. So in Placidus, everything's the same except 3 planets here. They're a little bit different. And so I invite you to look at them all and see, and to read the chart and interpret it from that perspective, and see what resonates most for you, and play with it and see how they actually all might resonate. And it's all just more insights and clues into what you're learning in this lifetime. what else here? Yeah, the Chiron changes from being in the 8th house here to being in the 9th over here. And another thing to consider or to know about is this information, it comes from your birth time. So if you don't know your birth time, you might not have access to your chart in this way. And you actually want to discover, like, and kind of, in order to find out what your chart might be, what time of day you were born, because you don't know, you would play with the idea of like, what do I think my rising sign is? Who can I ask of my friends? Or can I ask, what do you see when you first look at me? Or who do I present to? What is the face you see when, if you didn't know me, what would you see me as? So you can play with that and see what you present yourself to the world as, what your mask is, because that's what the rising sign is, and discover what it might be. You could be, yeah. So that helps you if you don't know your birth time, but hopefully you do, so you can have an accurate chart drawing and you don't have to fuss with it too much, because there's already enough. And I don't mean to confuse you with this different house system. I just really want to inform you that there are differences, and I want you to make an informed choice on what you want to use so that you can just, yeah, keep exploring. Because astrology for me, like, I've been learning it for um like 10 years, and I'm still learning because there's still more to look at and explore. So that's why it's fun. It's like kind of an endless exploration if you look at all these house systems. But if you just want to, like, you could do a tarot reading and be like, you could do it by spirit and be like, Spirit, I'm putting down 3 cards here, 1, 2, and 3, and one represents Porphyry, one's Placidus, and one's whole sign. And I'm going to close my eyes and I'm just going to pick one, and that's the one for me. That's the one that I'm going to use in my readings. So you can do it that way too. Just let spirit guide. Here's an example of a chart, and just, yeah, I already showed you it, but this is just a bigger representation of how the zodiac signs and the houses are different. For example, this is a house and this is the zodiac. And I already showed you how you could have one, let's see, like, mine are pretty lined up. But like this for here, the 8th house has 2 planets in it, but they're in different zodiac signs. You see how that works? One's in Taurus because there's a line here, and one is in Chiron. And in your chart, in the whatever thing you're using as your reading, your template for reading, it'll tell you also a list. It'll say Chiron is at 16.22 degrees of Gemini. And that's what this represents here, these numbers. And this symbol is Gemini. And you know that it's in the 8th house, whether it said it or not. I don't remember if it says it. But I'm so distracted from the car alarm. So I'm going to take a little pause here. So you'll see that Mars and Chiron are in the 8th house, and this is the 8th house. So now you have all your information here. You've got your zodiac sign, your planet, and your house. So now we're going to look into what do those houses mean if your planet is in that house and your zodiac sign is on that house. So Aries represents the 1st house, and it goes through the whole zodiac to Pisces, which we learned in the 1st class. So the 1st house represents myself, my identity. It represents just me, who I am. So whatever planets are in the 1st house you are those planets. For example, in some of those charts you just saw, the Pluto's in the first house. So I am the soul. Pluto represents the soul. So say your sun was in the first house. You are whatever that first house is. Say your sun was in Gemini in the first house. You are communication. You are education, school, learning. You are exemplifying that. That's just like your identity, basically. So the first house is your identity. And how you act on your soul's desires and the way you walk and assert yourself. And so all of these are Aries qualities. So that's why the first house is associated with Aries, because it is, so first house, you could just always think Aries. So if you see someone has a planet in the first house and the zodiac sign is, say, Taurus, so you'd think it's a combination of Aries, Taurus, and whatever planet that's in. And but now we're learning as we go through this what Aries really means. And that's what this whole list is. And that's what the first house represents. The other thing is the first house is what you look like. So if it's like your physical body, your physique. So if your first house, if you say Aries was in your first house, you would look like maybe kind of short, maybe really fit, trim, kind of maybe, just really, you might be kind of really energized and talk really like excited, enthusiastically. So there's every way that you would be showing up in your body would be an Aries expression. But if you had Leo in your first house, every way you're showing up would be Leo in terms of how you look and how you talk. You might have long hair. You might have, if you had Leo in the first house, you would have like long, like big hair, and just like maybe be blonde or something like golden. So that's how you can actually guess like what people's rising might be, is actually based on just their physical looks. And then the planets that are in that first house will shape that as well. Next, we're going to go to the second house, which is Taurus. And just to backtrack a teeny bit, so the houses are actually going through the life cycle of a human. So in the first, we come out of the womb and we're just we look like something, we look like a human, it's like the first impression of who you are. Oh, you're a boy. Oh, you're cute, like, oh, you're fat. This is whatever you are, is a cute little newborn is who you are. And then it moves into like I think it's every maybe 7 years that each house represents. It could be more or less, but I'm pretty sure I'd have to do the math and get back to you. But yeah, so as you move it through your life, after you kind of get your physical stuff down, or your basic, like I have a life kind of down, then you move into your physical, which is the second house. The physical is your talents, your money, your resources, your values, how you survive in the material world. So it's basically just having gaining stability in the world, like how you do that. So Taurus is all about just resources and how you make money and your job and values. So if you had a planet in here, you would know that that's one teacher or tool you can utilize to make your money. If your Taurus is in, or if say you had Leo here, you would know that you might make your money from being like an on stage or on camera or an actor. That's maybe how you do it. And you might value your talents even more, and you might really like to share them because it's Leo and you value self-expression, and when people are expressing, you're really into it and you want to relate with them because that's what you value. So that's an example. So again, more on that is it's building, it's practical, it's tangible results. Like, how can I use my talents to produce tangible results in the world, physical results? And it's your own stuff, your own house, your own money, your own body. Whereas every house has an opposite, every sign has an opposite. So the opposite is always at play. It's inherently at play in whatever it is. So the opposite is Scorpio, which is other people's finances, or sex with other people, or body together with other people. So that's something you can look at to balance it out. Next is Gemini. The mind, it's about what's right in front of your nose. If I think about, it's the lower school education, it's learning just the basics of life, how to do math, how to talk. It also has to do with your neighborhood, your siblings, your family, moving, exchanging bicycles, cars, friends, communicating, just all this beginning to network and technology and ideas and thinking and just using the mind, basically. So that is what Gemini is, and that is what the third house represents. So if you have someone has Aquarius on their third house and they have Mars in there, you would know to mix all of those energies. You would say this person really likes to communicate with large groups, many organizations of people, and likes to connect them all, and really is a great networker and put so much energy into networking. They're like always doing it. They love to do it because Mars is the doing. They love the actions that they're always doing it. That's an example. The opposite of the third house is the ninth house, which is represented by Sagittarius. And sorry, I don't know why it's going back. And so the ninth house is opposite, which is higher learning. It's like religion, it's this expansiveness. It's so that is there to balance it out. Next, we have Cancer, which is the house of the home, the roots, family, your mother. It will greatly tell you what your mother was like. And it's your sense of belonging, has to do with caring and nurturing, and basically your home and femininity and self-care. So, and emotion. So it's Cancer's house, and that's so whatever is here is where your life is expressing Cancer-like things. Leo is the fifth house, and it's all about what comes out of the house is children. It's all about children, creative self-expression. You find out who you are, you know who you are, and now you express yourself. You've gotten in touch with those emotions, and now you share them, right? So Leo, this house is all about creativity, playfulness, drama, and it's all about, your uniqueness, your specialness, and your ability to be a leader and your own king or queen. And it's also, I think it was, affairs. It has to do with romance, love, and affairs. So there could be, if something's going on here, there could be that at play. If the house is empty, that means you've actually kind of mastered that area in your life. So there's not much to look at if there's no planet there. You can know, oh, my blank zodiac sign is in the 5th house, and that's where I like to blank, but it's not as important for your soul journey to know about, because the planets are where the real lessons and things are, and the blank ones are where you've already kind of learned and mastered those lessons. The 6th house is the 6th house is house of health. So there's actually 3 houses of health, and the first one is the 6th, the second one is the 8th, and the third one's the 12th. And the 6th house is whatever planet is in here gives indication of how your health is, just general health, and what, like, if there's anything off or where you need to pay attention to. For example, my Jupiter is in my 6th house, and it relates to um, Jupiter is the liver. So I definitely have like some liver issues, and that shows up in my chart because this is the where you would look to find out about health issues. Um, so the 6th house is how you integrate who you are through yourself into the world through service and your offering and work. It's your day-to-day activities, your daily activities, and it's your service, what you do for a living, or how you spend your daily life. And people who have planets or sun in this house are typically into health. They're doctors, nurses, yoga instructors. They like to help. They're the helpers, and they like to fix things and make them better. They are actively purging and purifying, perfecting themselves and the world, because that's what Virgo does, and that's what they're doing in their lives and the lives of others. So these are your helpful healers, and in whenever you have planets, especially the sun in the 6th house. Also your aunts and uncles, which I haven't gotten too much into there, so I won't say much more about that. Libra, now we go above the horizon line and we get into our relationships. So now we've taken care of like our whole life, our learning, our home, our ability to self-express, our offering to the world, our money, our body. We have all of that, our health. And now that we're rocking and rolling with that, we are getting into relationships, whether it would be with coworkers or partners. And what I love that Kaipacha says is that any planet in the 7th house here is hard for someone to own because they see it as someone else, as their partner. They don't, they use the other to reflect it to themselves. So you can look to this house and see what type of partner someone actually might like or want. And whatever that is just a modality or a way that we can see more of ourselves through that partner's reflection. And since it's Libra's house, just all about like, relating, talking, finding balance and harmony in relationships. So that's what they like to do. That's what their goal is having. If you have any planets or a sun in that house, that's where your your biggest passion is to work on relationship stuff. I want to go to this. I like that I wrote this here because it says, look at the nodes and Pluto for evolutionary intention. So even though we're looking at all this stuff, the foundation of the chart and the reason someone was born is actually just the bottom line is what we talked about in the Pluto part of the second class is about the soul's evolutionary intention. And you can find that in the Pluto and the north and south nodes of the moon. So for example, my Pluto is in the second house in Taurus. And so money, getting my finances right, getting resources, being autonomous, being sovereign with my own stuff is very, very important for this life and something I'm working on mastering. And then the north nodes, with my north node being in Aries, is like all about freedom and liberation and um, carving my own path and creatively doing what I want to do in the world. So those two things, like if you really just want to see the bottom line of someone's chart and what they're really needing above all else, is that's where you'll find it. So sometimes I think the reason we wrote this in the relationship-ish part right here is that sometimes the relationships can cloud what we really want. So when we look to those relationships, what are they trying to reflect back to us? And is that relationship reflecting back what that our soul intention is? So that can be a helpful tool to see if that relationship is good for us or not. Scorpio is the 8th house. It's all about marriage, union. It's like the sexual reproductive organs. It's all about like coming together, kundalini energy, like deep power, shamanic journeys, transformation, gain and loss, things that are outside of our control, things that happen like the bank, for example. It's outside of your control how they spend your money when they have it. And death, when people die, it's outside of your control when they die. Or your partner, your marriage partner, it's outside of your control what they do, but you still have to be with them because you agreed to it. And death also, in terms of this is the house of transformation, because it's like an initiation. You die to yourself and are reborn through marriage. You are ending your life as an individual, and now you're rebirthing your life as a married person. So all of these kind of life path initiations are what is represented by Scorpio. And inheritance, other people's money basically is what Scorpio is about. Loans, it looks like ventures and goals, mystery, partners, resources. So anybody else's resources that you're working with. So if you have any planets in this house, you likely are working with their resources, whether it be inheritance or somebody else's stuff. Or if you have something transiting this house, you might be, getting married or going through a divorce, or someone's dying in your family. So this is like a big life, like a deep initiation process of life. And yeah, so this is also the house of chronic illness. So it's one of the houses of health, and it's about chronic health conditions. So if you see a Saturn or a Mars there, you'll definitely know that there's some illnesses. If you see Jupiter, it might be an excess of something. So that's a whole nother topic, but I just wanted to highlight that for those who are really into health and wellness. That's like gives you a clue of someone's body and what issues they might be facing regularly. Um, so this gives you, more of a deeper understanding of what Pluto represents, of what Scorpio represents. So now you get more of the flavor of like this archetype, the 8th house, Scorpio, and you kind of let that simmer and marinate. And then when you see Mars in there, you know that that person's really active in that realm. Or when you see Sun in there, you know that, oh, that person's like a therapist, or any of these things listed here. So you get insight into what this person's gifts are, or their challenges, or what they're working with in the life. And you can ask questions and see where they're at with that. Sagittarius is the ninth house. And this is like after you've gone through this deep transformation, deep dive of, it's like the phoenix rising after that, like, oh, what new awareness, what new meaning have I brought to life from that deep initiation? And that's what Sagittarius and the ninth house represents, of wisdom, higher education. It has to do with natural law and travel and like going out and learning and exploring. Has to do with, yeah, just a lot of, has a lot of freedom energy, expansive energy, um, kind of going with the beat of your own drum, connecting with nature, wild nature. Jupiter is it, as it relates to Sagittarius, because it's ruled by Sagittarius, and Pisces is all about like the wild, natural, wild nature and the natural law. So you'll find Sagittarius people, or people who have planets, or in this house, they're really into like either teaching or going long distance to study, or um, going to foreign places a lot to learn like what's happening there. And if in the opposite way, that Gemini is more about close distance traveling, like biking and driving, Sagittarius is long distance traveling, planes, ocean ships, and different things. And yeah, it's a kind of chaotic, changeable place to be, a lot of change because it's mutable and it's fire. So it's a lot of energy, shifting, bursting, moving, a lot of, yeah, just bravery, going where no one's gone, especially in the realm of mind and travel. Um, Kind of like making new synapses for the brain by going to those farther distances. That's how I would see it, as a way to, an analogy for how it looks in the body. Also, natural law and, oh no, the matriarchy is an example. So if you have a lot of energy or planets in Sag in the ninth house, and they might be associated with matriarchal expressions. Now that we've gone out and explored and gone the distance, we land back in a more grounded place in our career. So the 10th house, and like we talked about in the planets class, we have our vocation. Our midheaven is always in the 10th house, and the 10th house is Capricorn's house, and the Capricorn is all about seriousness and jobs, getting the job done, efficiency, responsibility, commitment. So what are you committed to, and what duties do you have, and what is your career, and what role do you play for the world? What, as a public, this is about public, being seen publicly for as an authority figure in um, that certain topics or realms. So for example, my 10th house here is in Cancer, which is actually opposite of Capricorn. So I'm an authority figure in like health, in women's womb health, because Cancer is all about the mother, birth, home, and the womb is our first home. So that's something I see for my long-term, one of my long-term careers is helping women with their reproductive womb health, especially as it relates to birthing and having babies. So someone else, if you have Capricorn, say, or in that space, you might be really serious and very authoritarian, like working for the government or something. So yeah, it's all about really the commitment to showing up in the world and how you do that, where you do that. Also, you could be famous for whatever's here. You could, yeah, people would know you as in relation to whatever's in your 10th house. Aquarius rules the 11th house, and it's all about what happens after you are established as an authority figure in your field. You then connect with other communities, other places around the world that are doing the similar things. You're just connected on a global scale now to different communities, and yeah, it's way more expansive. So Aquarius represents groups, organizations, global corporations, politics. So I imagine it as like the collective. It's also a lot about freedom and liberation, awakening, and like liberation from that seriousness of that job. Like, oh, I can go off and travel the world now, or oh, I can go, start this philanthropy or hobby that I've always wanted to do, or it's envisioning something that you can do with all that expertise and knowledge that you have from the 10th house. Like, what do you want to now share with the world and your future? So it's also more disconnected. There's this, not disconnected, but dispassionate. It's like this feeling of like, yeah, it's like there's not, I don't know how to describe it in this moment, but yeah, it's the opposite of the 5th house. So the 5th house is always very passionate and very involved with the self, but 11th house is more like objective and just seeing things as they are, and more removed, I guess, is dispassionate, or seeing things objectively. And it's blocked here, but it says innovation and invention. So what might you take away from, or create for the collective? Yeah, social awareness, humanitarianism. I like what they say in this little box. Humanitarianism is very 11th house Aquarian. So wherever Aquarius is, or whatever's in Aquarius, or whatever's in the 11th house, is where you express your fondness and your care for the collective at large, and how you relate to them. Next is the 12th house, the last house, and that is Pisces house. It's also the house of health, which is the 3rd house of health, which is the house of mysterious illness. So these might be illnesses like you don't know how they got them, and it's really hard to diagnose or get them away. They're just there and kind of chaotic and mysterious. Pisces is all about endings, healing, like closure. I'm just reading this house right now. Spirituality, solitude, karma, old age, afterlife, what's hidden, limiting beliefs, and the subconscious. So it's also like, yeah, where you kind of close yourself off from the world and go into this like kind of oneness spiritual space of like, it's just me here. Like I don't have an identity. It's letting go of the identity. So someone who has a lot of Pisces or has a lot going on in their 12th house could be living in an ashram or a monastery, or working at a hospital, or an art studio, or even finding themselves in an insane asylum because they haven't found, they don't have, because they have limiting beliefs, or their subconscious is running the show, or they're just surrendering to whatever it is and they don't have much control. So Pisces is very, or the 12th house is very, it can have positive, which is like very spiritual and artistic and creative, or it can have like a negative connotation of kind of just lost and in the chaos. So or escaping. So that's, yeah, it's a very interesting and place to find things, your sun or your any of your planets. So that is all the houses, and I hope you sit with that and look at your chart and see how you can relate with your own self in terms of this new knowledge of the houses. Um, yeah, I really appreciated you coming to this class today, and hope that, and leave any questions you have in the comments below. And we will tune in next time and talk about the aspects, the different, how the planets are aspecting each other. And um, yeah, I hope you're getting to know your chart and you're learning how to, yeah, you're just getting comfortable in your orientation. When you look at a chart, you know what's what, and that you're getting more intimate with the different energies of the different signs and houses and planets. Yes, learning the language of astrology and really just, yeah, letting it seep into your cells and your bones, and getting to know yourself on a deeper, intimate way. Like, what am I here to really learn? And I swear it's saved my life. It's helped my brain so much to know, like, oh, I'm really here to focus on this. This one thing is really what I'm, the kind of the clay that I get to mold in this life, um, and really work towards. And it's just so satisfying to know that that I'm doing the work and the my soul work, and that I'll be satisfied when I'm, 50, because I know that I'm really like um, squeezing all the juice out of my life and doing what my soul came here to do and experience. And I'm just sure that it'll be such relief and liberation and satisfaction when we keep forging that path of our soul's intention. So yeah, I'm excited to talk again soon, and hear any revelations you have about your chart. And yes, thank you. Aloha.